Because BMW in this i5 and i7 models are doing something very different to the rest of the industry. They are in fact the only brand using this type of electric motor. Now that M70 version gets dual motors, front and rear, delivering a combined 660 horsepower, which, let me tell you, puts some supercars to shame. Hello there, so I am at the regional BMW i5 and i7 launch event. You can see the cars here right behind me. And what interests me is today we're going to be checking out the top two, you could say, tier cars from BMW from over the 15 full electric models they already have on offer. Now, beyond the luxury, what interests me and you, if you're subscribed to the channel, is the tech. We're going to be looking at the battery tech, and more importantly, we're going to be looking at the electric motor tech, because BMW here are doing something completely different from everyone else in the industry. And we're going to see the pros and cons of that approach. I'm Luke, and welcome to another episode of The is Electric. We're driving the i5. Now there's two variants of the i5. They keep it simple, right? You can either get the fast version, which is the iDrive 40, that's rear wheel drive, or you get the really fast version, which is this one, which is the M60 version. So the i5 eDrive 40 is a rear wheel drive vehicle with one electric motor, which gives out 340 horsepower. That delivers 400 Newton meters of torque. That means it does the acceleration from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in just 6 seconds. Now, if that's slow for you and you want to go a bit faster, there is of course the M version. Now the iDrive M60, which is their top of the range for this lineup, has two electric motors, one in the front and one in the rear. That rear motor again delivering 340 horsepower, but the front motor adds a further 261 horsepower. Together they deliver 795 Newton meters of torque. Now the impressive thing is then they have this little gizmo / gadget, which is a boost function, right? You press a lever behind the steering wheel and that sort of pushes the car, the motors and the battery to the absolute limit. And that pushes the torque to 820 Newton meters. Now, even with all this horsepower, BMW claims that the efficiency is between 20.6 and 18.2 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. These are exceptional numbers, and just to put, for comparison's sake, Miltos here is a petrolhead, so he might not like what I'm about to say. So, a McLaren Spider 3.8 V8, also 600 horsepower, okay, burns or achieves 5.95 kilometers per liter. Now this BMW with the same horsepower gets an equivalent of 55.5 kilometers per liter, an 11 times saving in energy consumption.
Yeah, but the sound.
We've got Hans Zimmer and we've got boost mode.
Shall I?
Yes. Who needs petrol? Let's talk a bit about this electric motor technology, because this is where it gets interesting. Because BMW in this i5 and i7 models are doing something very different to the rest of the industry. They are in fact the only brand using this type of electric motor. So if you're used to seeing videos on the channel, you know that we usually see permanent magnet synchronous motors or even induction motors. But here in the BMW, they are using what is called a wound rotor synchronous motor, or a brushed AC motor. Now there are a number of advantages for this approach. Probably the most important one is that this motor contains no permanent magnets and therefore no rare earth materials, making this motor choice a lot more sustainable and easier to construct. And another advantage of this motor is that it operates better or is less susceptible to heat. So heat is going to affect the motor less. Therefore, it needs less cooling than the other motor technologies. But perhaps the one you will feel the most is the fact that this type of motor technology allows for more control and better control of torque, even at higher RPMs, where traditional permanent magnet synchronous motors sort of start to fail. Now, what are the downsides, right? It can't be all good. Well, it does mean that this motor has brushes, like some old electrical appliances, which means those brushes are eventually going to need to be replaced. And however, BMW have confirmed that through a particular sealing technology in the motor, the replacement of brushes is not as frequent as you would imagine compared to some like older electric motor devices. Now, recycling is a very important principle for BMW. In fact, the batteries in these electric cars are already built to be recycled. They are built in modules. Such modules can be taken out of the battery pack and thrown into a machine, essentially, which recycles the battery. So who are they working with? Well, they've partnered with a German company called Dussenfield. If I've messed up the pronunciation of that, please let me know in the comments below. But beyond the pronunciation, the cool thing I found about this company is that they are able, with today's processes, to recycle up to 96% of the original raw materials in the batteries, which can then be put into new batteries. But perhaps the most interesting thing I found about this company is that they're not just building a recycling plant somewhere in Germany and all the electric vehicles in the world are going to have to ship their batteries there. They're building a system where the recycling equipment is essentially put into a series of containers, and those containers can be shipped to the different places in the world where these cars will find where their batteries will find their end of life and need to be recycled. This means we don't need to ship the batteries to one central place, but instead the recycling comes right to the place where we need it. I think this is an incredible move forward. So after 15 to 20 years, 15 to 30 years in the case of Malta with our conditions and usage. After that, the batteries can be put to second use. So used in stadiums, as we're already seeing in Amsterdam, to power essentially large-scale electrical grid systems. And an important thing I found here is that the same recycling company is taking the batteries out of the cars, checking them before they are put to second use, on the condition that after their second use is over, that battery goes to be recycled with them. That just goes to show the value that still lies in that battery pack at its end of life. So let's talk a bit about sustainability and what BMW are doing in that regard. So one of the biggest claims from the fossil fuel lobby is that the production and manufacture of batteries is adding such a huge carbon footprint that electric vehicles don't make sense altogether. Well, let's see a bit the details into that. So in the US, for example, BMW have partnered with AESC and they're currently building a battery plant in South Carolina, which is right next to their already existing vehicle manufacturing plant. So they are very close together, which means the transport of the battery cells to the actual plant where they're going to be fitted into the cars is going to be minor. And to top it off, that new battery plant is going to be running on 100% renewable energies. Let me tell you, if the i5 is for the wealthy, the i7 is for the very wealthy. So I'm gonna get to try drive it a bit later on. I have my new friend here, Miltos from Cyprus, who's in the driver's seat. But I tell you, this is not a car you drive. This is a car you're driven in, because back here it is 100% first class. Just check this out, right? So I'm just here. I'm gonna hit seats and I'm going to go into this lounge mode. So front seat is just moving forward here. Process takes a bit of time, but you will enjoy it once it's ready. So that moves forward, and then the leg rest down here will start to come up. There we go. And I am 1.83 m, right? And it's also adjusting the seat behind me. There's a little rest which comes up on the front seat there. And this is how you enjoy the Croatian countryside. Oh, it gets better. It gets better. Because from my huge screen back here, I can do something like this. Press that. The blinds come up. And that is a TV nearly as big as the one in my living room. Look at that. Now you think the lines, that's because of the filming, right? But it is super crisp and super sharp. And I could be at the back of this car for hours. So there's 3 versions of the electric i7 available. You've got the xDrive 60, the eDrive 50, and then the top of the range M70 version, which is obviously the one we're in today. Now that M70 version gets dual motors, front and rear, delivering a combined 660 horsepower, which, let me tell you, puts some supercars to shame. And it does the sprint from 0 to 100 in just 3.7 seconds, or the equivalent of a new pair of underwear. Miltos,
Yes.
the screens are nice and the front. You've got a lot of things over there, huh? Infotainment. It's amazing, right?
It's a 5-star hotel with wheels.
But do you have Netflix in the front? Because I have Netflix back here. So let me tell you a bit about the batteries of the i5 and the i7. So intrinsically they're very similar in design. So in the i5 we have an 81.2 kilowatt hour usable battery pack. That's composed of 4 modules of 72 cells and 3 modules of 12 cells each. Now those cells are prismatic and they are coming from battery supplier CATL as well as Samsung SDI. Now an interesting thing here is that the high voltage battery has been designed a bit specifically to BMW in the sense that it has a narrower or less height than traditional cells. So it's only 4.3 inches, which means the cabin space is not affected in any way between the internal combustion version and the electric version which I'm in today. Now the larger i7, which I am currently sitting at the back seat of, is a larger car, right? So it allows for a larger battery. Here we have a 101 kilowatt hour usable battery pack. All right, my turn to drive the i7. We stopped near a small forest to change over, and the car became full of mosquitoes. So now we've let them all out. So this is, there we go, mosquito again. Out, get out. All right, so this is the fastest BMW ever made, over 1,000 Newton meters of torque, which means Miltos, are you okay?
I think my spine just flew off the window.
Okay. I think I have to get my organs from the back seat. Whew. It's like that roller coaster feeling, only worse. We're not speeding, we're obeying the speed limit. We're just getting to the speed limit very fast. You've got Hans Zimmer who comes in to ease you up. So BMW expects that by 2030, 50% of their sales will be all electric. But everything's showing that the target is going to be reached earlier than that. If you enjoyed today's video, make sure you hit that like button, and subscribe definitely helps a lot. But as always, I hope I and the BMWs have convinced you that the future is electric.